is a heavy and vulnerable conversation to have. This platform is a safe place for all individuals to come share their life's journeys of surviving grief without judgment.
I'd like to welcome you all to the QT Surviving Grief podcast. My name is Tiffany Ware, and I am here today with a very special lady. I actually met her back a long time ago. Me and her brother Michael, we were in 5th grade in Mr. Oliver Goodman's class at Baker. And this was back in the day when we had those clear notebooks. And I had a picture of her and my little cousin Austin. And Michael was like, "How do you know my sister?" And I'm like, "Oh, Austin is my cousin." And from that point on, me and Michael was bonded. Like, we have something in common.
You are family.
We was family. We was family from that point on. And so I would like to introduce to some and present to others Miss Heather Lipscomb.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It is a complete honor, and you have always been special, you and your family, to me. You were Austin's babysitter many times.
Yes, church on Sunday, every
always
weekend.
Want to go down to Tiffany and TJ's.
That's right. That's right.
Janet and Tim did not count. It was Tiffany and TJ's house. So
that is too. We had so many good times. We used to have Austin every weekend, just about. It was. I say that was my first baby. It was definitely my first baby.
I said, I know my child is good when people ask to keep him. So.
Oh yes. Oh, Austin was our baby. Yes. That is too funny. But yes, that made us family, and we have just powered through that journey ever since. So how old is Austin now?
28.
28. Wow. That's a long time. I know time flies.
I don't feel like I should be old enough to have a 28-year-old, but
I know time flies. But I just thank you for being here, Heather. And I'm going to start the conversation off. Of course, we're on our grief podcast, but I always try to find something fun to introduce and like a nice icebreaker. Quinn was always so funny and the best personality ever. So I try to wrap with something about him and end. So I want to ask you this opening question. What brings you joy right now today?
Right now I'm in the Mimi stage. So my grandgirls, I miss them when they're not here, and sometimes I'm ready for them to go when they are here. But I have learned to grasp that and just accept it, and watching them grow and do things and discover who they are and their personality and all that it's a love. Like my grandmother used to tell me, you don't know love until you have a grandchild. And like, I didn't grasp that until I had mine. Of course, Cam is our bonus. And then Sayla is ours, but they are a complete joy. So
I'm sure I see the pictures, and y'all are just so active as a family. You make sure you keep y'all's family pictures up to par. Still send mama pictures every Christmas. You have always been good in being that glue for your family, Heather, and I've always admired that.
Thank you.
And for everybody, just keeping us all informed as to what's going on with your crew. So I can see where they definitely bring you that joy.
Thank you.
I can see that. Well, we are going to hop on into a little bit of conversation. I want you to just tell the people who Heather Lipscomb is, your background, where you're from, just a little bit about you.
Okay, so I was actually, many people do not know this, I was born in Michigan and came here. I am a Saturn kid, which is now GM. And so I've always been a part of the South. My grandparents on both sides are from Alabama and Tennessee. So I've always had that Southern connection. Moved here, got involved in the community. We joined a church. Like, I grew up, I graduated from Central, went on to college, had babies, left Columbia, came back to Columbia. I currently work in dentistry. I run a practice, and I am a wife. I'm a mama. I'm a Mimi. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. And I'm a friend. And I'm in a really good place. Like I used to couldn't say that. But I have journeyed to, and there's days, but I'm in a much better place. So.
Yeah, that's powerful. I like how you said that. It's not always been that way, and we're
No.
gonna get into that. But
Yeah.
I appreciate that honesty,
Yeah.
because I think sometimes people see, oh, the Facebook, and oh, what you got going on now, but
Oh,
people don't know your
absolutely.
story, which is why we're here today. And so
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Heather. That's
Yeah.
very important.
Thank you.
Very important. So speaking of that, do you remember the first time you experienced loss? Even if it was as a child, do you remember the first time
Yeah. So
someone passed
I
away?
I literally text my mom this morning because two things instantly popped in my head. My grandmother
Mm-hmm.
Patterson, which is my mother's grandmother, when she
Okay.
died, and I asked mom, I was like, "Hey, did you take me to that funeral?"
Mm-hmm.
And she
Mm-hmm.
texted me back, "No, that I didn't go." But like, I remember her dying. I remember my mom crying. I remember
Mm-hmm.
that. But I didn't grieve her. I feel like
Right.
when I look back at that, it's like, yes, I knew her and I went to her house and these things, and I
Right.
remember things about her, but I don't feel like I grieved her in a way I've grieved others. And so the
Right.
first one I really recall that I grieved was my
Mm-hmm.
grandfather, my dad's dad. Um,
Okay.
we, what is crazy is the night before he died, we were in Florida on vacation, and I
Mm-hmm.
dreamed about him in a dream that he was in this tunnel and he was waving at me. And at the time, I
Wow.
didn't know what that meant. Like, I had
Right.
no idea. I mean, I told my mother about it. I told my parents. I told my other grandmother about it. And they didn't really feed into that. Like, what was
Uh-huh.
that? But I, now knowing, I'm like, that was him telling me bye
Yeah.
that night. And I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't realize like that was God giving me a peace because we were very, very close.
Okay.
He like took me to, we did Burger King runs together. We would go to the airport and we would watch the airplanes, and he would always say, "You'll always find peace in the sky."
Oh, wow.
And I never knew, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, you're like, peace in the sky. Like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? Like you
Right.
never think about that.
Yeah.
And so I remember like us coming home to Tennessee, packing very quickly, driving to Michigan. I remember going to get a dress with my grandmother for the funeral, going to the funeral,
Mm-hmm.
looking at him, and like he was so peaceful looking. And then
Yeah.
I remember it was just like it was over. And
Yeah.
it was like to digest that, to like go back to his house, he'd not be there, he's not going to
Right.
call us. It was just over. And so that is, it was like an ache that I
Yeah.
kind of put on the back burner because you don't know. I feel like so many people, when they first initially go through grief, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
what is this
Mm-hmm.
pain? Like,
Yeah.
what is this
Yeah.
hole? You don't know what it is. I mean, in the
Right.
back of your mind, I feel like you do, but like to verbally say what it is or act it out or feel it, you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, you don't. Especially if they're young, Heather, too.
Yeah.
My grandfather died. It was probably the first big loss I had,
Mm-hmm.
and he similar to you. I mean, we did everything together. Picked me up from
Yeah.
school, da da, and it was very different, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
really understand it all. And it's like you said, that void of
Yeah.
like we're now I have to start a routine. Okay, now somebody else got to pick me up from school.
Yep.
Like as a young kid, that's really hard to understand
Mm-hmm.
and process. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. And what was his name? I always like to
George.
honor people.
George. Yep.
George. Okay.
George.
Okay. So
Yep.
George Stewart.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Okay. Well, Heather, one thing I had noticed and something I do know about you, I had seen a quote you wrote on Facebook, and what you stated was, I cannot think of anyone stronger than a mother who has endured the loss of a child and actually still breathes, like is still able to go on and forward in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to my mom early on about, loss she had, our oldest sister, Tanika,
Mm-hmm.
infant loss. And I know that's something that you have experienced. So I want to take this space to really honor Ashley and Bryce in this moment. And I just want you to tell us their story.
Okay. Um, it's funny because people ask me sometimes, like, how many kids do you have? And
Mm-hmm.
I used to struggle with saying, oh, I have 3 kids, but only one
Uh-huh.
here.
Right.
Or I have 2 kids, and before I had Bryce, I would struggle with that because I didn't want them to feel awkward. But it's like I didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
not say that I had these children because I did have these children and they
Right.
lived. And they have birth certificates and death certificates, and they're buried, and like they did exist in my world and other people's worlds. They was impacted. So Ashley was my firstborn. She was born in 1994. I was 17. I was very young. Had no clue what I was doing. It was not of course, it was not a planned pregnancy.
Yeah.
We at all. I was scared to death. I was about to go into my senior high school year. And ironically, she was born on my grandpa George's birthday on August 15th. So I always thought that was a special connection, that she passed on his birthday and he's got her. Like, I always found comfort in that. Like, there was a reason God allowed that to give me some comfort. So she was stillborn. Back in 94, there was not the technology there is now at Murray Regional. And I went to the hospital with back pain. I did not even know I was in labor. I went to the hospital in back pain, and they said, "Oh, you're about to have a baby." And they were like, "We don't even know if she's in position. So we need to take you down to ultrasound and see if she's breech or she's in position for you to deliver." So I was on the elevator and got really sick. Like throwing up. I was dizzy. I thought I was going to pass out. And they were like, just keep breathing. You're in labor. Like, just, that's what it is. So they got me down to ultrasound, and they could not find her heartbeat. And it was about an 8-minute time frame from where they had her heartbeat on the floor to the time they got me down there. And they were like, "We need to rush you back up there immediately." And Antoine was there with me, and we were both scared to death. We did not know what we were going to do. And they were like, "We have to get this baby. You have to deliver this baby now, or we're going to probably lose both of you." And what had happened was I had placenta previa, and I was hemorrhaging. So that means that the placenta had detached. So that was, of course, her air supply. And she, for that 8 minutes, she had I was not breathing for her anymore. And so we lost her, which was at 17. You don't know what that is. I mean, I had no idea. And I remember they took her, they cleaned her up, they put her in a pretty dress, they brought her back to us, and they let us hold her. And I just remember, like, it was so surreal. Like, you don't know. You're in shock, your adrenaline is going. Like, looking back at that, I'm like, how did I even do this? You know? And then it's like, the next day I had her, and the very next day should have been my first day of my senior year. But we were at a funeral home planning a burial, which at that time, like, I knew no one. I still don't know of anybody at that age that buried a child. Like, I have seeked out groups. I have, like, went on forums trying to find another, like, teenage mom to connect with. Usually it's like a miscarriage or an abortion on a forum, but not an actual, like, delivery. And so to this day, I still have not found that, but I feel like God will put that in my life when it's needed at the right time. But that was her story. And so her name was Ashley Lexine Stewart. She's actually named after her grandmother. And her resting place is Polk Memorial. And so we go there and we see her, and she has birthdays and Christmas and all the things. So, and then Bryce is Bryce Taylor. He was born in 2006. He was my best pregnancy. He was he wasn't so much planned, but I was prepared for a baby. I was at the age where I had a career, I had a house, I could buy whatever I wanted for him. I didn't have to say, "Oh, I'm worried about how I'm going to pay for this car seat," or whatever. Like, we could do whatever we wanted for him. Very easy pregnancy. It was probably the only pregnancy I showed. With both Ashley and Austin, I felt like I didn't gain a lot of weight. I was pregnant. but I
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
pregnant. So
Right. Right.
with him, I was very pregnant. You could tell I had
Okay.
the biggest belly I had ever had, and probably weighed the most I had ever weighed. But had a great pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
I had my first baby shower was my job gave it to me. And for
Okay.
some reason that night when I got home, I did all my thank you notes. I thought, I'm going to go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and write all these thank you notes and take them to work tomorrow and I'll be done with it because I don't want to have to worry about this. And
Right.
so
Right.
I went to work the next day, gave everybody their thank you notes, and I had a doctor's appointment that afternoon at 2 o'clock for him, just like a regular check.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming home and just started having really bad pain. Like I couldn't even hardly push the gas on my car. And
Okay.
I was in labor. And so I had pulled over to the side of the road. An ambulance ended up coming to get me because I couldn't make it.
Yeah.
Got to the hospital. He was breech. And so it was like, okay, plan B, let's do a C-section.
Okay.
So did a C-section, and every mom that has a baby waits for that cry. Like
Yeah.
you want to hear your
Mm-hmm.
baby cry. And my
Mm-hmm.
mom was in the C-section with me, and he wasn't. I didn't hear the cry, and I kept saying, "What is wrong? What is wrong? He's not crying. He's not crying." And I kind
Mm-hmm.
of didn't think that much of it because when I had Austin, his
Mm-hmm.
cord had wrapped around his neck a couple times, and he didn't cry right away either. And so I was like,
Gotcha.
okay, he's going to cry in just a second. And
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the C-section table and they're like rushing him out of the room. And I just kept telling my mom, like, what is wrong? What is wrong? And of course, she didn't know either. And
Yeah.
then they took me back to a room and said, we don't know what is going on. He could possibly have floppy baby syndrome. We're going to
Okay.
take him to Vanderbilt. And I
Okay.
was like, oh my gosh, they said they're taking him by the Angel to Vanderbilt. And I was like, oh, well, I'm numb from the waist down, so I cannot go. And I'm like, Mom,
Right.
y'all just go. Y'all leave me and go. And so
Yeah.
as soon as my legs were able to walk, one of my mom's really good friends was there with me. And I said, it's 2 a.m. and I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And there she was like, you
Yeah.
don't have any clothes. I said, I'm leaving.
You going.
And
Yeah. You gotta get to your
Merc
child.
Regional gal on the front and on the back, and we was going
Right.
that way. So got there,
Mm-hmm.
still didn't really know what was going on with him. Wires everywhere, breathing tube. I had personally never seen a baby with
Mm-hmm.
that in an incubator with like still
Yeah.
trying to process. Like I had this beautiful baby and hair. I mean, his hair was like almost down his back when he was born. The nurses were like, we've never seen a baby with this much hair and all this. And so we started going through a process to try to figure out what was wrong. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't floppy
Mm-hmm.
baby syndrome. That's usually when they come out and their muscle tone is just um, kind of suppressed, so they're just like a floppy baby. And so that's
Okay.
kind of how he
Okay.
was, and that usually
Okay.
goes away within 24 to 48 hours in a normal type
Mm-hmm.
setting. His was not. He was not
Gotcha.
breathing on his own. Nothing. So we started the process to try to figure out with specialists after specialists, and like they were like, we've never seen this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you're
Hmm.
Vanderbilt. What do you mean? You've
Right.
never
Right.
seen this. Like, what
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
wrong with him? So his doctor came in and said the only way we can try to figure this out is to start doing some biopsies on him. And
Mm-hmm.
so we went into doing biopsies. They did a surgery on his leg. It was the first one. They took part of his muscle out of his thigh and tested it. Still, they could not figure it out. So then they
Mm.
came back to me and said, hey, we would like to send this to Baylor and to John Hopkins because
Wow.
we don't know what this
Yeah.
is. We need a bigger team for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, whatever, just whatever you need to do, please do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so they sent it to Baylor and they sent it to John Hopkins. And this was like I'm really bad with timing on this because I feel like I remember some of it, but I don't. I think
Yeah.
it was like the end of towards the second week when they sent it to those two places. And then we got some results back, and I was there by myself. Usually someone was always there, like my parents, his dad. Someone was always there at the hospital. And for this particular time, I was by myself, and they said, "Hey, we would like to meet with you at 1:00 and talk to you." And I was like, "Okay." I had no idea they had gotten the results back. And so I
Gotcha.
go into this, like, look like a conference room, and there's like 10 doctors, there's nurses. Like, it was very like, what is
Yeah.
going on? And they had me sit down, and they said, John Hopkins has found out what this is, and it's called myotubular atrophy. And what that is, it's a
Okay.
form of MS, which I carry an MS gene, and
Okay.
it only happens in little boys. So if it was a little girl, if it was XY, it would, it would have been a different scenario. And so
Okay.
basically what it is at the base of your brain, there's a disconnect. And so he could never, he could know in his brain that, like, the way they described it is, if we held a match to him, he knows we're burning him, but he can't move it away. So, like, there was no muscle
Gotcha.
tone, like the brain would not tell his arm to move or his lungs to breathe. And through this, I learned that your heart is a whole separate muscle. So his heart was working completely fine, where the
Okay.
rest of his body was not. And
Gotcha.
so they gave me the scenario of, he would never breathe on his own. We would have to trach him. The lifespan of these children is anywhere from 7 to 11 years old.
Okay.
They will have a home. They would have to have a nurse 24/7 to get their secretions, because they can't do that on their own. Basically bedridden, wheelchair. I mean, never any form of life. Maybe never talk, all these things. And so I was 30 at the time, and
Okay.
I thought, I don't want to make this decision, but, like, I just wanted to pray. Like, at that time, I didn't know, like, okay, do the doctors know everything? Are they going to, is God going to come down and miraculously heal my baby? Or what is going to happen? So, family came in. We all were, of course, devastated by this news, and
Yeah.
have to make a decision. And I was like, how quickly do I have to do this? And they were like, no, 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 no. It's whatever. Like, whatever you need to do, we'll do. Like, the hospital was not kicking us out or making me, nothing of that. I will speak to their praise at Vanderbilt forever. They were so good to me, and to my family. Like, set us up at the Ronald McDonald House, allowed me to stay in the room, just anything to make it easier for us. They did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Awesome.
so thankful for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had a peace to let him go to heaven. And
Okay.
so
Okay.
on April 21st, we
Yeah.
all were in a room together with him, very peaceful.
Yeah.
The doctor came in, removed all life support, and he
Okay.
lived for about 54 minutes with no
Really?
tubes.
With no
And I
tubes.
just got to hold him, and they would just
Okay.
come in and check every so often. And then finally they said, he's gone. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was hard. It was really
Yeah.
hard. I then I tell this story, but I then got to drive him to William's funeral home. They let me take him, and I
Okay.
remember praying, like, please don't let us get pulled over, because I was just
Yeah.
holding him in the front seat. And sweet Rick Points, who now is at Heritage,
Okay.
greeted me at the door, hugged me, said, whatever we need to do, we will do. If you want to stay here with him for a while, you can.
Yeah.
He took me downstairs, gave me more time with him, and he took him just like he was a normal newborn into his
Yeah.
arms, and he said, I
Yeah.
got him. I'll take care of him. And then had a funeral for him, and that was hard, because I was at an age where other people were having babies, And we were at that age where like we were all kind of settled.
Right.
And I'm like, this is baby number 2 though for me.
Yeah.
You know, I just couldn't understand like why. And then this kind of to piggyback on that, it was just a few years later, Austin was in a horrific car accident.
Yes.
So I was already helicopter paranoid mom about babies and losing my children. And
Right.
he was in a very bad wreck, and right around the street from our house, and the paramedic, they were putting him on the life flight helicopter, and they said, we're going to let you see him because we don't think he's going to make it 11 minutes to Vanderbilt. And I got on the helicopter, and he said to me, Mom, Bryce told me to go back. And I didn't even remember him saying that in that moment. It was later on when we talked about it. He was like, Mama, Bubba told me in that field to go back. He told me to go back. And so I believe that in all my heart that is what happened. And that child walked out of the hospital 3 days later, and he's fine. I mean, we have some scars, but he is a walking miracle.
Yes, he
A
is.
miracle. So most people don't understand the bond him and I have.
Right.
It's just different.
Right. It is.
It's just different. He has walked with me through a lot as a kid. He, of course, he didn't know Ashley because that was before him. They would be 2 years apart. But I always tease him that he would never had girlfriends if she was here. She probably would not have allowed that at all.
Right. No, that big sister. Yeah, Heather, you just unpacked it. You unpacked a lot. Ooh, that was a lot. There's some breathing space needed there. You are a strong woman to, have to go through that process twice, have to make that decision on Bryce's life because you kind of knew the quality of life he would have.
Yeah.
And then, like you just mentioned, what I remember when Austin went through that it's been a lot of trauma within that whole window of what you've dealt with. One question I have for you is, did you ever go to therapy or anything during Bryce and Ashley's within I know it was a little year span, but in those years, did you go to therapy? Like, what was y'all's perspective on that?
So with Ashley, it was kind of buried. I feel like when looking back, I don't feel like anyone knew how to direct me. Even my parents were there for me. Absolutely. But we didn't talk about it. And it's not like it was a taboo thing or anything. It's just, I think they didn't want to rock the boat of saying or bringing it up. They kind of wanted me to like go on and have my senior year and graduate and like have some happiness. And so I just kind of like subconsciously pushed all that back. I mean, I did remember her birthdays, and other friends of mine were having children, and I have friends now, like, excuse me, one of my really good friends, her daughter and Ashley would be the same age. They're just like a month apart. And so every time I see her, I'm like, they would be the same. What she's doing, Ashley would probably be doing, sort of thing. So, I do think of that. With Bryce, it was a little different. It hit me a whole lot harder with him. And so I've always been I'm the oldest child. So you're independent. You push through. You just do what you have to do. And so, and I had Austin. I had a 10-year-old. So I was like, I can't just like fall down and break. I have to continue to go. Like, I still have to show up for ball. I still have to get him to school, like all these things. And so, had Bryce, after he passed away, I went back to work about 3 weeks later with
Okay.
everyone telling me, do not do that.
Yeah.
But I was like, the best thing for me is to get my brain back on
I
some kind of
see.
normalcy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, let me go back to work. And so I went back to work, which was way too much,
Yeah.
way too fast. And
Yeah.
in July, I broke. I
Okay.
just broke.
Yeah.
It was one night. Austin was upstairs. We lived in Murfreesboro at the time, and I broke. I said, I
Yeah.
cannot do this. I do not want to do this anymore. This pain is so much. I don't want
Yeah.
to do it. I was tired of faking. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. You know,
Right.
I just broke. And so I did attempt to take my life with some pills.
Gotcha.
And that was the point I started healing though. The grace
I
of
see.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I went to the hospital. I ended up doing 30 days inpatient, which I
Okay.
needed. I
Yeah.
needed that.
Uh-huh.
I needed someone to tell me it is okay to not
Yeah.
be okay.
To be.
You don't
That's
have to
right.
be strong.
Yeah.
You don't have to carry this. And I needed that. Austin
Yeah.
needed his mom to do that. Like
Yeah. 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 For
he
sure.
needed to see me break because I would
Yeah.
like try not to cry in front of him. I would, you know, if I did cry, it was like, you know, get yourself together. You know, I didn't
Uh-huh.
ever want to
Yeah.
put that on him. And, but I needed that break. And so I truly think that was the start of me grasping maybe this much of
Okay.
the start of the healing part of it. And of course, it all flooded back from Ashley, from my
Yeah.
grandfather. Like it was
Oh
like a
yeah.
tsunami came in, and
Yeah.
I was just like remembering things that I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't remembered in 10, 11 years. Like it was just coming back like it had just happened yesterday. And
Yeah.
one of the counselors I went to, she said, um, it's the acknowledgement now. Like you're
Okay.
acknowledging it. And
Yeah.
she said, I had so much guilt of like, after that, like I tried to take my own life because
Uh-huh.
like that was like I took it as that was the weak way out. Like I
I
then looked
see.
at myself like the shame and the guilt of that
Yeah.
out on all
That's
this. I was like, this is the easy way out. And she was like, no, this was your step.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this was your first step. And
Yeah.
she was like, so don't, she's like, it's not an easy way out because look where it has brought you. Like, you're about
Right.
to go into the real hard part,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
That's true.
you're about to go in the real hard part. You thought that part
Mm-hmm.
was hard, but this is going to be the real hard part. And
Yeah.
so I had a very good doctor, Dr. Enda Curry. I will forever shout him out. He,
Okay.
little bitty Indian man. I think he's about 4 or 5. And he he was so direct with me.
yeah.
He asked me hard questions and didn't take
Mm-hmm.
my "I'm okay" answer.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I needed somebody to do that. And
Yes.
sometimes you need an outsider that doesn't know you
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
say that to you.
That's
And
right.
that's what I needed. I didn't need anybody to like pat me on the back, or I needed that hard, tough, like push you kind of scenario
Yeah.
at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah. We need that. Like you said, that person who doesn't know anything about you.
Mhm.
I 100% see that. And you know, you talked a lot about Austin going through a lot of that with you. How
Yeah.
did you help him process some of that, Heather? Were you at a point where you could help him, or because I'm sure, I mean, he understood Bryce.
Yes. Yes.
Y'all have pictures of him and Bryce.
Yes. Yes.
So how at that age, being 10 years old, like how did you help him through that?
So I remember when we got the diagnosis, and I had my
Mhm.
parents brought him to the hospital. He usually came on Sundays to see his
Okay.
brother.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the Sunday, he had held him for the first time the Sunday prior to that.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was explaining to him what was going on, he
Mhm.
looked at me and he said, so Bubba will never play ball.
Oh.
And I
Yeah.
said, no, he'll never get to
Yeah.
play ball. And he said, then he needs to go to heaven. And
Okay.
so I knew that he knew what that meant. That
Yeah.
he knew that he would not be his Bubba the way he wanted him to be his Bubba.
To
He
be.
was so excited when I got pregnant. He was like,
I
I'm gonna have a baby
bet.
brother or sister, because he was the only child.
Right.
And
Right.
he's got tons of cousins. And
Yes. Yes.
but he never had a baby brother or sister. And so I knew he got it then. And then he would when Bryce was still in the hospital, ironically, Bryce was born on the 23rd of March, and Austin's baseball number that year was 23. And so one of the games before Bryce had passed, I left the hospital, came down here to his game, and he's like, Mama hit a home run for Bryce. And of course he did. And
Yeah.
we still have that ball. It's signed, and Austin kept that ball because he hit it for his brother. But he
Yeah.
understood it more than I even think I did.
Okay. Okay.
Because he
Yeah.
was just the
Yeah.
child innocence of it. He
Yes. Yeah.
really
Yeah. Makes
understood it.
sense.
And even when we were planning the services for the funeral, he was like, we have to get a football balloon, we have to get a basketball balloon, we have to get a baseball
Okay.
balloon, and I'm
Yeah.
going to send those to heaven. Like, he was so, when we let the birds go, he was like, there's 3 of them, Mom. That's me, Ashley, and Bryce. Like, he
Oh.
like related so many things.
Oh
And I'm
wow.
like, this kid is just,
Yeah.
he helped me more than I probably helped him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he always, he would write. I have pictures. I'm sure people have seen it on my Facebook. He would write R.I.P. Ashley and Bryce on his football stuff. He's always been one to say, I have an older sister, I had a baby
Yes.
brother. He's never hid that from anybody.
Uh-huh.
He goes to the graveyard with and
Yeah.
without me. He knows
Okay.
they're buried in Babyland. My dad is buried there. So
Yeah.
he has his own way of doing that.
Uh-huh.
And then when Selah was born, she had to go in the NICU for just a little bit, and he called me, and it was a trigger for him because
Yeah.
never knew the NICU until Bryce. And he said, Mom,
Right.
she's not breathing, and they're taking her to the NICU, and it was during COVID, and he's crying, and I can't get to him because no one was allowed at the hospital.
At the hospital, right. Yeah.
And I said, Bub, she's gonna be fine. Like,
Yes.
she's made it this far, she's gonna be fine. And of course she's fine.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I know some things like that trigger him.
Yeah. I
And
could see that for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, going because that took him right back to his brother
Oh yeah.
and what.
Yep.
That was probably a huge trigger for him.
Yeah.
But I like how you mentioned a lot. Austin has definitely honored his brother and sister
yes.
throughout his, even when he was younger on up until now.
Yeah.
Writing their names on the jersey, going up there. I think that's a really good way of honoring. And like you said, he doesn't shy away from the fact it's not, oh, I'm the only child. Like, no, I have a sister and a brother. And I think that's very important in young children. And so speaking of that, you talked a lot about he was really involved in the planning of Bryce's services and giving suggestions. One thing when I talked to my mom about her losing Tanika that she did not do, Heather, was bury her children. Do you feel like you got any sense of, I don't want to say closure, but do you think that helped you navigate the end of their lives actually by having the service, burying them, and now you have a place you can go back to? I know that's a big regret my mama has.
Yeah.
But I didn't even realize that they were. I'm glad I know that now.
Yeah.
But do you think that helped you a little bit through your process?
For me personally, yes. And to this day, like, my best friend wants to be cremated. And I was like, you have to promise me that I can see you before that happens. Because for me, and this is personal, I'm not putting this on anyone, but I had to have that closure. Like, I have to see you. I want to say goodbye. Like, I seen Ashley. I held her. Her casket looked like a white, I remember, like, it looked like one of those white igloo coolers. Like, it was so little. And, Bryce's home, the outfit that my mom bought him to go home from the hospital in is what we actually buried him in. And so those sort of things, you know, I'm not going to say they're comfort, but it's like
Okay.
I did get to fulfill some of those things with them.
Yeah.
You know, I took
Yeah.
lots of pictures of Bryce. You know, I wish we would have videoed things, that sort of thing. I wish that would have, it just wasn't a thing then. You know, you just
Then,
didn't,
yeah.
it wasn't the world we were in
Yes.
then. And so, but I do not regret that. But I do have friends like your mom that has, even with miscarriages or loss of a baby, that they didn't do that. And
Right.
some of it may have been the direction that the funeral home or the hospital directed them in. They
True.
may have not told
True.
them these other options.
Yeah.
I had one friend, she said, I didn't even know that was an option. Like,
Right. Right.
she, at one point, she said, Heather, I didn't know what happened to my baby. She said,
Wow.
they just
Yeah.
took my baby and then they sent me a death certificate. She doesn't know. She's like, to this day, like, I never knew, like, what did they do?
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm like, that's even harder, I feel like, because what you don't know, you know, no knowledge is power, and like knowing
That's right.
things helps so much. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's hard to
I'm
not.
just I'm glad you're sharing these options because I feel like it may be someone who, people are listening to this, Heather, and you're going
Yeah.
to help a lot of people out. Like, know your options. Like you said, knowledge is power. And so you take the initiative to say, no, this is what I want for my, baby, if anyone's ever in that situation.
And
And I
even
think yeah, go ahead.
with miscarriages, and we'll get to this. I don't want to jump ahead, but
Yeah.
in
No,
my
you're
like
good.
grief counseling and things I help other people with, like,
Yeah.
there's so many women who have lost children, and I'm like, you need to name them. Like,
That's
what do
right.
you feel in your heart that baby was? Do you feel that baby was a girl? Do you feel that baby was a boy? Like, name
Yeah.
them.
Yes.
They're in heaven. Like, I
That's
have
right.
no doubt all these
Oh,
babies are
yeah.
in heaven running on those streets of gold, and they are living their best lives.
Yes. Oh,
And
yeah,
I
for
do truly
sure.
feel like when these mothers and fathers, I do not want to exclude
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
heaven,
Yeah.
like, they're going to hear mom and dad. Like,
Oh, yeah.
those babies are going to know that that's their parents. And
Yes.
so I tell people all the time, like, if you can, and it's a process, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
something you can just say, oh, I'm going to do this, and even with your mom,
Yeah.
I have a good friend. She didn't have a service either,
Mhm.
but she
Mhm.
had one just a few years ago.
Okay.
They did
Yeah.
it. And it was at her house. It was, the people that were there when that happened that she had shared with,
Uh-huh.
they had a service. And they kind of like told the memories of when she was pregnant and that sort of thing. And so I feel like that helped her tremendously on connecting these dots that was forever missing for her because she didn't have that. And
Yeah.
and she didn't know how those people felt about that. Like, me losing Bryce affected my parents tremendously.
Yeah.
And so you never know, like, your mom, how
Mhm.
many dots her living that out would connect
Yeah.
for other people, even you and TJ.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
hearing that
Yeah.
story that would connect
Mhm.
these dots, you know?
Yeah, that's important. It's like you even though I don't like however long it's been, you're
Yeah.
creating that space.
Mm-hmm.
You hold space for that memory and
Yes.
honoring that child and actually having, something to do that in. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm glad I like how you mentioned that, Heather, because I
Yeah.
think sometimes people feel like, oh, that was 20, 30 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
da da da. But that doesn't mean anything. You can still revisit things and
Yes.
still have the opportunity to
Yes.
make that memory. So
Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Um, the only other thing I know we're kind of wrapping up this segment of talking about the kids. What do you feel like people can do if they know of a young lady who has experienced the type of loss you have with their children? Do you have any advice or suggestions for the family members, for the friends, for the church members of how to help that lady navigate that particular loss?
Prayer is just,
Prayer.
there is so much power in prayer. Like, I
Hmm.
literally have been prayed on my whole life. Like, people have poured into me and poured into me. And at that moment, I may not have felt it, but now looking back, I'm like, it was by their prayer that I made that. Like, and then just being open with no judgment. I think that's so important, that, you know, it's not of, you may not know the situation or have walked through that situation, but whatever they're feeling is valid. And,
yes, it is.
you know, it's their story, it's their journey, it's their healing, and there is no right or wrong in that.
No.
And so I think allowing someone to have freedom in that is very big, because if you feel like you can't have that, then you're going to withdraw. You're not going to go to the church. You're not going to go to somebody. But if they're open to hear that and just listen, not everything needs their response when they're talking. Like, you don't have to.
That's right.
Don't hand them the tissue. Let them cry. You know, I learned that through my classes and stuff. Like, it's good to cry. You need to cry.
Release. You're releasing.
Release it. You can't hold all that in, because it's going to come out in another way if you do.
Yes, it will.
It's going to come out.
Yeah.
Whether you like it to or not, God is going to remove it from you.
Yeah, that is very, very true. I think that's some good advice. Because I think a lot of times, depending on who may have passed away, people may shy away from, that's a baby, that's a touchy topic. We're just going to, like, distance it a little bit, you know, like they're kind of scared. But I appreciate you for really giving people some advice if anybody's going through that, on how to help support that person. Yeah. Well, Heather, the next story I want you to tell the story about Mr. Gary Stewart, your father. Let us know who Gary Stewart was to you.
He was an amazing man. I am truly a daddy's girl. As most girls are, I feel like, you know, you're either all the way the daddy's girl or you're not, you know.
That's true. Yes.
And there's just something about that bond that is special. So, my dad was, he was a good dad. Like, he was always there. Bass, softball, dance, cheerleading. I mean, I remember when I was cheering, he knew my cheers. He would say my cheers and pick with me. We were so much alike. Like, it's a joke on the Stewart side that we all have bad knees. So, like, my dad had bad knees from playing ball, and then I had bad knees. My brother Michael has bad knees. Like, it was just carried on. But my dad was just genuine. He was who he was, and what he said he meant. He was not a man of, like, many words. Like, he wouldn't talk your head off. He was a big jokester, but when he did speak, you knew what he meant. And if he cared about you and loved you, it was for real. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I love you, bro, you know, or like, I'm there for you. Like, my dad was there. If there was somebody on the side of the road with a flat tire, he would stop. You know, if he could help in any way, he had that servant's heart to go. Like, my dad went on mission trips. He helped in the community. He always helped my mom. Like, whatever she did, he was reeled into it with her. You know, decorating or whatever. He was there. He was the best fried peanut butter and jelly sandwich maker I know. So good. It's like grilled cheese, but it's peanut butter and jelly.
I'm about to come over. We're going to have to do that here.
So good.
Fried peanut butter and jelly. Okay.
He made the best pancakes. He was just truly there. Austin was a papa's boy. I mean, from 3 months, he would sit literally, like, in the crook of my dad's arm and watch ball with him. And a funny story about that is, I had this you know how you have a diaper bag and like you keep one outfit in the diaper bag for like the in case so it was
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
green like polo onesie from the Gap. And my dad, Austin would even mess his clothes up, but I would come home and he would have that outfit on. I'm like, Dad. And he was like, I just like his outfit. So he just always had that outfit on. And he, taught Austin how to play ball in the yard. We had to reteach him to play t-ball because my dad had just pitched to him when he was like 2 and he was hitting the ball.
He
And
was
so when he went to play
advanced.
t-ball, I was like, no, you have to hit off the tee. And my dad was like, no, he can hit the ball. So he was just that person to so
Yeah.
many people. And even after he passed, people would come up to me and be like, you're Gary's daughter. And I'm like, yeah. And they would tell me these stories about him at work or at church or the gas station up from my parents' house.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
ladies
Michelle,
in there
yep,
all knew
yep.
him. And it was always kind of the same story.
Okay.
And so I came to the conclusion, like, that was truly my dad, because yes, it's different stories, but it's always the same words, just in different stories, that who he was to them.
Yeah.
And so I'm proud to be his daughter. So
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
truly a blessing. My hero, always. He'll forever be my hero. So
Yeah, I always knew you was a big daddy's girl.
yeah.
I always knew that. And like you said, his relationship with Austin, they definitely had that special bond.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
One more funny story I have to tell about this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Austin was a senior in high school, and all the home games, my dad was on the flag crew for Riverdale.
Okay.
And so the flag crew always, of course, had to be on the opposite team's sideline to do the chains and flags. And so this whole game, the coach is like, get number 5, like take him out, like the whole game. And so the beginning of the fourth quarter, my dad was like, that's my grandson, by the way.
Right.
But he said, I had to listen to them the whole game. And he said, finally, I was just like, I'm about to tell them, like, that's my grandson.
So like bring it on down.
Yes. He was so proud of him. My parents never missed a game. They never missed a Riverdale game. I told him, I said, I think you guys went to more Riverdale games than you did Central, but because they just never missed, whether it was basketball, football, whatever, they were there. So we're an athletic family and a little bit competitive. So
yeah.
But he was truly one of a kind. And anyone that has met him, like all my girlfriends call him Daddy Gary. They call my mom Mama Lynn. He truly loved everybody, and wanted to help them. And he was just a man of God. And he lived that out, like with his servant's heart. He truly did serve others. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah. He left a legacy, Heather.
Oh, definitely.
And that's what is being what you're talking. That's displaying right now.
Yeah.
What his legacy was and all the lives that he touched along the way.
Yeah. Austin even Justice right now is working on her next step in her career. And she's not working. She's taking care of the girls. And he has said, Mom, I don't want her to work. Like, I want to, because my mom didn't work outside the house. Gotcha. And so she sold Avon. Bless her.
Yeah. Yes. Big customers. Yes, it is.
So, I think Mama Teen was one of her biggest customers at one point. She loved it. But, I see like the things that my dad instilled in him. Yes. I mean, he's 28 and he's already like fulfilling some of those things that my dad poured into him. Yeah. So when you think they're not listening, they truly are.
They are. Yeah. That's I know that makes you so proud. Yes. Just to know that Austin is carrying on. Yeah. And everything his grandfather taught him. That's amazing. I know I know a little bit part of Gary's story is I guess the all Alzheimer's. I hope I'm saying it correctly.
Uh-huh.
Part of the story. I know that was one thing that kind of he experienced in life. Um, when we think about grief, Heather, of course we think about people passing away,
Mhm.
obviously. But sometimes I feel like I'm going through that currently with one of my family members. They have dementia, and it's kind of like I've started somewhat grieving his life a little bit, because it's
Yes.
kind of like, okay, I know this person will never really be the same. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know who this was up until now, and
Yes.
a lot has shifted, not all the way shifted, but I know those are two similar conditions.
Mhm.
When you guys found out about that, did you grieve what like how you may have seen, like, okay, how is this going to change my daddy's life?
Yes.
Did you think about all that in that moment? How was that for you?
I went into research mode. Like
Okay,
I
okay.
be like, I was one of them, like, if you tell me something, like, I'm trying to research it. I'm Googling, like, how do you fix this? What do we do? Like, I went into full
Yes.
blown, like, what are we gonna do here?
Okay.
So my dad was diagnosed very young at 58. Him and
Wow.
Pat
Okay.
Summit were both diagnosed at 58, and they both passed away at 62. So that usually the earlier you are diagnosed in your life, the quicker
Mm-hmm.
it progresses. So when someone gets
Okay.
dementia at 80 and 90, it's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
slower process than when you're diagnosed at a younger age. I didn't know
Okay.
that with my dad.
Okay.
And so I instantly thought, that's not what he's got. He's just
Yeah.
58. Like, I instantly was kind of like in a denial about that. And
Yes.
then as it progressed, I seen things.
Okay.
Just like he was forgetting simple things. Like one night my mom couldn't find him, and he had drove to work at like 9 o'clock at night, and he didn't go till 4 in the morning. Um,
Oh wow.
we constantly talked on the phone in the mornings. I'm an early bird, he's an early bird. So like
Mm-hmm.
4:30, 5 o'clock AM phone calls for us was a normal.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
they got less and less, or if I even called
Gotcha.
him, he wouldn't answer, and it was, he may not know where the phone is, type of thing.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so
Okay.
as I started it, I truly think that my mom grasped it from day one, because I mean, she lived
Okay.
with him, and they had known and
Mm-hmm.
been together since they were 14 years old. So she
Okay.
knew
Gotcha.
him. She
Yes.
knew
Oh yeah.
his actions, the way he talked, walked. I mean, she knew him inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
So she grasped it even before we got an official diagnosis. She knew
Okay.
something was wrong. Um,
Gotcha.
but my brothers, um, they were in denial. There ain't nothing wrong with dad.
Yeah.
He's okay. I don't think they truly seen where it was until Michael, my baby
Okay.
brother, was the one who went and found him the night he drove to work at 9 o'clock at night. And the next day he called me and he was like, sis, what's wrong with daddy? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? I've been telling you this. Like,
Right.
it
Right.
was one of
Right.
those, like, where have you been? Like,
Yeah.
this has been going on, Michael. You guys just haven't seen it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like as a girl,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of the family and the oldest, we're like the
Yes.
boss and the leader.
Oh yeah.
So we do
Yes.
things.
Yes.
We take charge before our
Yes, we do.
brothers. If something has to be planned, we're going to plan it,
Yep.
And
You
so
right.
I took that on,
Mm-hmm.
and through that, I knew, I was like, when this comes down to it, it's going to be me. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really think that my dad would pass quickly. It was never is he going to be gone in 4 years? Like, I never thought about that. But it was right after he had got diagnosed, my parents were like, we're going to go to the funeral home and do our planning.
Okay.
And will you go with us? And I was like, okay.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
we went, and, they're picking out caskets and
Mm-hmm.
what they want in them and what they want on their tombstone and how they want their tombstone. And then we went out there and looked at a plot. And my dad is like jokingly like laying down, like, how do I look? And I'm like, Dad, this is not funny. Like, it was so hard for me that day. And they were just going through it.
Yeah.
And I remember telling them, like, this isn't fun for me. Like, this is not,
no.
I don't want to think about this, type of thing. But, they were at peace with it. And I just didn't understand it at the time.
Yeah.
And,
I understand.
but I think my dad knew what they knew when the time came. They didn't want that burden on us.
Right.
They didn't want that. Like, that planning. It's a lot. And when my dad did pass, that was the biggest burden off of us. Like, that we didn't have to go down there and wonder, what does he want?
Yeah.
And the actual casket he picked, he actually got buried in, because they still had it there. All these things, like, I'm like, if God planned out a plan, this was surely it, because the things just fell in place. And so I tell everyone, like, if you're able to do that for your family, I feel like that's the greatest gift you can give them, because number one, you're not thinking straight when that happens.
Oh no,
you can't.
Sure not.
You don't know. It's like, what song, what flower, what did it's like your brain is so on overdrive, and you're just going through the motions. But when it's done, and you just have to go and sign a couple pieces of paper, or guarantee that that's what's happening, it just took a big burden off of us. So, but I do think that when I started grieving him the most is when one day I had went to check on him, and I forgot their house key. And so I was knocking on the door, and my parents have like this glass, and it's frosted, but you can still see through. And I'm like, Daddy, I'm looking through, I'm like, it's me, open the door. And he would not open the door for me. And so we live like 2 miles from them. So I drove home real quick. I got the key, and I went back and I opened the door, and I was like, why you didn't open the door for me?
Right.
And he said, I didn't know who you were. Plain as day. And that just like gut punched me, that, because my mom had told him, like, do not open the door for anybody. Do not answer the phone if you don't know who's calling. And I remember coming back home, and I told Jermaine, I was like, I'm losing it. Like, I'm losing. Like, then there was days, like, he knew exactly who we were. And then there was days he didn't. He got to where he couldn't say my name. He wouldn't say Heather. He would say baby girl. And that's what he called me when I was little. So he had like reverted back to when I was a child. But I do think anyone that's going through that, you start grieving that person before they actually go. Someone that I just admire so much that's going through this right now is Alicia McGuire. She is going through that with her mom right now, and she posts funny videos, and they're always doing something. And like, I know her and I talked a while back, and I told her, I was like, you don't know how much that does my heart good.
Right.
Like, that comforts me so much, that she gets those glimpses of her.
That's right.
In those moments, and like forever, she will be so grateful whenever that time comes, that she has those that she can cherish. I mean, I have several of my dad with Cam, and funny things he said, and it's like, when that's all you have,
that's right.
That's what you hold to so closely. But she is navigating that so gracefully, and the patience and the compassion, and the funniness that she has with her. I told her, I said, you don't know how much comfort that brings me,
Right.
And she doesn't plan that. She's like, I'm not, it's not about me, at all. No. But she doesn't know how many other people, I'm just one person. But there's no telling how many other people that ripple is going on and on and on, because she's doing it. So
reaching a lot of people.
Oh,
A
absolutely.
video memories is something that I've always took pictures and videos
Yeah.
stuff. And even when it comes to Quinn, like it's so many times, put that camera down. And I'm
Yeah.
still like on the side recording everybody. And now I got those, like you said, you have those memories to go back
Yes.
and be able to and be like, wow, like we really had some good times.
Yes.
And so I'm glad you brought that up about Alicia and that. And yeah, it does help others.
Yeah.
It really brings some joy to your day when you have days that are very dark.
Mhm.
That can really uplift your spirit. So I'm
Yes.
glad you mentioned that, Heather. I like one thing I was noticing on your Facebook page. You had made a post on your daddy's. I call it Angelversary.
I love
That's
that.
something that my cousins taught me. The Armstrong side when my aunt Louise died, my grandmother's sister,
Mhm.
and so they have an Angelversary for
Mhm.
Aunt Louise every I think every year, every couple of years. But one thing you had wrote on November 11th on concerning your dad. You wrote about how you missed your dad. Don't get me wrong, you missed him, the things you missed about him. But then you kind of reframed that way of thinking and you was like, but I know he's walking the streets of gold. But I know, Jesus healed him from this disease he had. You positively reframed it. And then I think you even mentioned something about his legacy and just being thankful for the legacy he left here on this earth. Um, how did you find that type of peace, Heather, after his transition? Because that is very powerful. When I went through and read that, I'm like, I need to maybe look at my own situation different. But you have to get to a point of feeling that way and finding that type of peace. And I just want to know how you got to that point.
Um, wasn't overnight.
Yeah.
Um, even at his funeral,
Mm-hmm.
he wanted the song by Kool and the Gang, Celebrate.
Yes,
And
I know the
my mom
song.
honored that wish, and we played that song. And
Yeah.
I remember people clapping and singing, and
Yeah.
I was so angry. Like, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, how dare they clap
Mm-hmm.
and celebrate like right now, you
Right. In
know?
this moment.
And
Yeah.
I'm on the front row, and like,
Mm-hmm.
the front row is different. Like she says,
Yes,
like
it
the
is.
front row is different.
Yeah,
And
it is.
I remember sitting there so angry
Mm-hmm.
that people were like happy and singing that song. And like, even
Yeah.
though I knew my dad picked that song, because we
Uh-huh.
did know that
Uh-huh.
ahead of time, but I honestly didn't think they would play it at church.
Uh-huh. Right. It's a little odd. Yeah. I get
But
it.
I was like, he said that, but they're not gonna play that at church. But
Right.
I can remember sitting there, and I remember Jermaine just holding me because I was
Mm-hmm.
just crying so hard. And like
Yeah.
the anger, I was just fireball hot from the inside
Uh-huh.
out. And when I look back at that, I was angry in that moment, not at the people, but
Yeah. No,
when
I
I look back,
understand.
they
Mm-hmm.
truly had grasped what my dad wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know my dad would not want me sad all the time. Like, he would not want me mourning him and stopping to what I'm doing
That's right.
because of him. And I
That's
know
right.
my dad would not want to live with Alzheimer's. Like,
Right.
he was very competitive, played
Mm-hmm.
baseball, probably could have played for the pros. Like, he
Yeah.
was just that good.
Mm-hmm.
And to see him become fragile and quiet, my dad has
Mm-hmm.
never been quiet. When he talked, he was loud and he laughed loud, and
Yeah.
I just seen like he was a different person. And so
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't living. Like, he
Right.
truly was just existing. He wasn't living. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, I'm sad that he's not here to see these grandbabies, because like he has all these grandkids, and would say
Yes.
my brother's littlest one, he
Uh-huh.
is going to be the ball player of our family.
Gotcha.
Like, it was
Gotcha.
Austin in that generation, and then Wood
Uh-huh.
is now going to
Is
take over.
now.
I fully believe. But I know he would, Sayla's the only girl, her and Cam the
Uh-huh.
only girls, like I was the only girl, but all these boys, I just know how much he would love them. But I also know, like, none of them got to experience him like Austin did. They
Yeah.
wouldn't know him
Yeah.
as Austin knew him. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not how he would have wanted them to remember him.
Right.
And that's
Right.
not how he wants, he would joke with Jermaine all the time.
Yeah.
Even the day we got married, he was like, "You sure about this, dude? Like, do you know what you about to get into? Because once you take her, I'm not taking
That's
her
yeah.
back.
That's it.
I'm not taking her back." So I know that in my heart, like, he would never come back here
Yeah.
for that.
Right.
As much as he loves us, and
Yeah.
this is not our forever home,
That's right. That's right. We
and
just passing through. That's right.
it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when we're born, God knows the day we're leaving here.
Yes, that's true,
Like,
Heather.
he
Very
knows
true.
whether it's, a couple hours, a couple years, 30 years,
Yeah.
62 years, 94 years, like, he knows. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like,
Mm-hmm.
that poem about the dash, like, that importance of living that. And
Yes.
as I
Yes.
look at
Yeah.
people like
Yeah.
Quentin, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
his whole family, and I
Yes.
truly believe he lived that dash. Like,
Oh.
he
Oh
lived
yeah.
his life to the
100%, Heather.
fullest.
The
And,
fullest. Yeah.
I always say too, God takes the good ones first.
Yeah. That's true. That's
But
true.
these people that, I myself, like, connect with you on that because, Jermaine's brother
Uh-huh.
was murdered. We still don't
Right.
know
Yes.
who did that. And so we live
Yes.
with that every
Yes.
day too, that, like,
Every day.
in the back of our mind, like, is this person speaking to us?
I know that. Yep. That's right,
Is this
Heather.
person,
You sure do. Mm-hmm.
all these thoughts go through your head.
Yeah.
And so I just truly believe, like, I found peace with that with my dad, that I know
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't
Yeah.
come back here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he wouldn't want to come back and be what it is here
Right.
in this world. So
Right.
I have to just hold on to that. As much as I miss him every day.
Uh-huh.
Like, I
Oh
want to call him.
yeah.
I want to ask him things.
Yes.
I want him to come fix something at the house. Like, I want, or try to fix something. He was not a Mr.
Yeah.
Fix It, but,
Uh-huh.
you still call your daddy.
Yeah, you do. You
you know,
do. Hey, yeah. Yeah. That's your
so it's
go-to.
just one of those. I just found that I know he would not
Uh-huh.
want to come back to be that person. And even if
Yeah.
he could be healed and not have Alzheimer's and come back, he still wouldn't come back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Quinn used to always say that, Heather, they sang a song that goes, like, this world is not my home. I'm just passing through.
Yes.
But he would always say, Tiffany, I passed away. Cause he was kind of like what you was talking about your daddy, like acting like he was like, this how I'm gonna be. I want to be buried like this and all. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about that, Quinn. Like, this gonna be when we get old. But one thing he would always say is, Tiffany, it's something more to this life here on earth. He
Yeah.
would always say that. Like, he was not scared of that road at all. And so that's a good way to look at how we reframe, how we look at our loved ones that have passed on, Heather. I really
And God puts
like
that
that.
in them. Like, if God
Yes.
put
Oh
that
yeah.
in Quentin to put
Oh,
that to
definitely.
others. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I truly believe that people that have that openness about that and all
Uh-huh.
that, it is like, it's a God-given
Yeah,
spirit.
it's special. It's special. It
Yes.
is. It
Yes.
is. It's a special thing. And
Yes.
and when you're not even afraid of what that looks like,
No.
no, it's something more than just here. It's something greater, something
Yes.
better. And so when
Yes.
you have that perspective, it shifts, and it honestly helps. It can help your family navigate after you leave here a little
Yeah.
bit. Because I'm like, I can say, no, he wasn't scared to die. Like, I at least have that sense of peace. And so
Yeah.
it's like you say, it's holding on to those type of things that I can see where that can really bring a person peace.
And you'll find
in that
other
moment.
things, Tiffany, as you go through that. Because I
Yeah.
know that hit you so hard.
Oh
Like, I
yeah,
have
Heather.
watched you
Oh
walk
yes.
through it, still
Yeah.
going through it. Like,
Still right currently now. Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
But I do see those pieces that you put together, points,
Yeah.
that you may not even recognize. Like,
Yeah.
this podcast itself,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
wouldn't have happened without Quinn.
No. You right. You
But I
are
mean,
so
look
right,
how
Heather.
much
Yeah.
bigger,
Yeah.
you would never have tapped into that side of yourself that you knew
No.
you had in you,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
God was like, I'm going to give you Quentin
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
give you this purpose.
Yes, yeah. Show me how to navigate this.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, I mean, we talked about this stuff all the time and navigating it. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, I just want to continue his legacy, how he would
Mm-hmm.
help people and cook for
Yep.
people and sing at funerals and all play and all that. It's like, yeah, we got to keep it pushing.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate those words, Heather. You
Yeah.
don't know what that means. I really appreciate it. So in talking about shifting gears a little bit, the process to moving forward and just giving people grace. One question I have for you is, did you ever question God in any of what we've talked about, from Ashley to Bryce to your daddy?
Yeah.
Like, did you question God in some
Oh,
of the moments? And if so,
absolutely.
how did you navigate that?
Um, oh, absolutely. Like, still
Yeah.
question. Like, I feel like I
Uh-huh.
still got a
Hmm.
list that I still want
Yeah,
him to
yeah.
kind of check off for me.
Check out.
Like, I still got the list in my Bible, man. Like, he had
Yeah.
to answer some of these,
Right,
even though it
right.
says we're not to question his ways. I think it's normal. Like, in the
Yeah, I think
Bible,
it is
like,
too.
Peter, John, like everybody questioned him, and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um what something that brought me back, and I'm not a Bible scholar, so I don't know all
Uh-huh.
the verses and right to where to go, but I do know the stories. But
Yes.
he grieved Lazarus,
That's right.
and so
Hmm.
he knows like what we
Yeah.
feel too. And
Yeah.
one thing that hit me really hard when I was in a grief group after Bryce,
Hmm.
I was just like, why my babies? Why two?
Yeah. Right.
One,
Right.
God, I'm gonna give you that one, but two, why?
Yeah.
Why two? And this lady looked at me and she said, God, God gave his son.
Yeah.
And
That's
I was
true.
like, ugh,
Hmm.
like gut
It
punch.
hits you.
And
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, you're right. Like,
Hmm.
I am not above him.
That's right, Heather.
I
Yeah.
am not above him.
Yeah.
But when you're in that, it's like, how dare you say that to me? Because that's how I felt. Like, when I left
Yeah.
that place, I remember driving back from Nashville and I was like, how dare her? Wait till the next group. I'm going to confront
Right.
her on the
Right.
side. Like, I, was angry at that. And then it was years later. Like,
Uh-huh.
I never spoke to her again. Like, we
Yeah.
would go to that group and I would say hi, but I had no
But that
other
was it.
conversation for her.
Hmm.
But she was at a totally different place than me. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
had to learn, like, how many times have I may said, because sometimes you don't
Hmm.
know what to say. Maybe
That's
I
true.
said something to somebody that when they were
Uh-huh.
in that moment of grief that I hurt them, or
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
say the right
Yeah.
thing, or I told them to stop crying when they really needed to still cry. Um, so much of that, like, has come full circle for me, but absolutely question.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's been a big topic about, and then I thought about it too in the Bible. Like, God does give us answers, so it's kind of like I don't think He minds it, honestly, Heather.
no.
Like, He's gonna answer us,
And it's on his time though, because like
on His
sometimes you
time.
get these
That's right.
answers. Like I had all these questions, like, but I haven't got some of these answers till like a couple years ago. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
That's right.
and then I'm like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
I don't think if he would have answered me in that way, I wouldn't. It wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah.
You
That's
know.
true. That is a good way of looking at that as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um, so navigating out of that, Heather, what are some things you do just to keep yourself grounded, like even right now? Like, yeah, grief is a process, but we all have to find a way to keep moving forward. I never say move on. I always say
yes,
moving forward.
yes.
What are some ways you do that now? Just when you think
Um,
of your well-being
I
and how to
do
keep
get
yourself
up
rooted.
really early. I get
Do
up
you?
really in the morning. I get up at
Okay.
2:45 alarm goes off and I'm in my office, which is here, and I am in this Bible every morning.
Okay.
I have a
Okay.
Devo, and I have just found like I have to start my day like that.
Like
No,
that.
I
Gotcha.
have to, because if I say I'm going to do it after work, I don't do it
Uh-huh.
because something
Uh-huh.
happens. But
Yes, yes,
if
yes.
I do it before I even start my day, And I'm
Okay.
gonna be real honest. I
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
pee and I come in
Uh-huh.
here. I don't brush
And
my
come
teeth,
straight. Gotcha.
nothing. Because if
Gotcha.
I get distracted, I'm not gonna do it.
Yes.
Like
Not
I
gonna
have
do
to
it.
get in it. And some days, I have a Devo, and then some days I don't do that. I just
Uh-huh.
literally am like, God, just direct me on what I need today.
Gotcha.
I need to be filled up so I can
Yes.
fill
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
else up if it's needed. And the way the
Yeah.
world is now, we're so busy. We're so,
Yes.
our phones are attached to us. I mean, like
Uh-huh.
we were talking about before we even came on,
Right.
turn all
Yeah.
this
Oh
off
yeah.
so we won't be distracted.
Distracted. That's
Um,
right. That's right.
and it's like to just focus and be still. And
Yes.
sometimes it's not reading. Sometimes it's literally just sitting here and trying to still my heart. Like I have this practice that I put one hand on my heart and I put one hand on my stomach and I breathe
Okay.
in 5 times and out. And that whole time I'm like, let me just focus on breathing. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to just breathe when you're in
That's
grief.
right.
You know,
Yes, it is.
you feel like you can't get a breath, or
Mm-hmm.
it's so much, your mind just races with so much stuff. Like, I don't know what it
Mm-hmm.
is to be still.
Right. Right.
What is it to
Right.
be still and turn off everything?
Yeah.
And so I have found that has centered me so much. And then at
Mm-hmm.
night, I try
Mm-hmm.
to pick 5 things that I'm grateful
Okay.
for before bed. Like, even when I'm laying in bed, and it may just be that, Lord, thank you that I was not in traffic today.
Okay. Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
can be, or it could be very big. Thank you for
Yes.
saving someone's life or whatever.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just think 5 things.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes 5 things is hard
Uh-huh.
to name,
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
you're in the midst
Yeah.
of something. It's hard to be like,
It
God, I'm
is.
grateful. But, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's, I'm grateful I didn't snap on her today.
That's right. That's right. That's
you know,
right.
like,
That's
like
right,
just be
Heather.
real and raw. And I found out, like, that's how God wants you, just as you are. And
That's
so
true.
if it
Yes.
is, thank
Yes.
you, I didn't
Yes.
snap on her today. That's what he
Yeah.
wants.
It is what it is. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
he
He wants your
wants.
honesty. Yeah.
Or, God, I'm mad at you.
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nothing's wrong with that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I like how you do a morning and a evening type of
Hmm.
routine, Heather. I think Mama does the morning thing too,
Uh-huh.
because she's like, that's when the house is still.
Yes.
It's just her and Dad now, but like everything's
Yes.
quiet. And I think she's like this, similar to what you said,
Yes.
starting my day out right with God on my mind, and
Hmm.
him allowing him to navigate that space with me in the mornings. And I also like that you do the deep breathing.
Yeah.
That's one way to regulate our bodies.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't really think about that, but it does wonders when
It
you do
does.
like breath work
Yes.
correctly.
Yes.
And like you said, eliminating the distractions. I don't have
Yes.
nothing like really, really being in tune with yourself and what you need in that moment. And
Hmm.
I think that's important. I'm glad you brought that up because that's something nobody's ever really talked about
Yeah.
on this platform. But it's super important.
Yes.
Super important. So, okay, you done gave us those tools. So I want you to talk about, I know you do like a grief counseling or program. I want you to talk about what you have going on right now in your life, whatever it is you want to promote. I know that's one big thing that I did want you to mention.
Okay. So in 2022, I
Okay.
got my death doula certificate that I'm certified. And
Oh,
so how that happened was, you know, sometimes a death hits you harder than others. You have
yes.
one that you kind of expect, then you have the
Yeah.
shocker one, like all these different ones. And so
Uh-huh.
my sister-in-law, Ron, passed. And
Oh,
I
okay.
remember, she was in the hospital with COVID. And we had got a phone call earlier in the morning that they were weaning her off the vent. So we were like, this is great. She's doing good. And then about
Mm-hmm.
12:30 that day, we got the call that she was gone. And I
Mm.
fell to my knees. Like, it hit me so hard. And
Yeah.
I I didn't want to talk to anybody. Like, I just kind of shut down. Like, of course,
Mhm.
everybody started flooding over here to the house, and
Yeah.
you know how it goes. And I
Yes.
just
Yes.
completely
Yes.
shut down. And the next day, 2 of my friends were like, we're getting you out of the house. Put your gym shoes on. Let's go. And I
Okay.
said, okay. I trusted them, and I knew whatever they were going to do was to help me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we went to Still Falls, and we did a
Okay. Oh,
and
wow.
one of
Okay.
my friends, we were hiking up, and she was like, Heather, um, you're gonna be a death doula. I said, what is that?
What is that?
Like, I don't even know what that
Yeah.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, how many people have you lost?
Mm-hmm.
From like my dad from 2018. And I was like, Ron is number 44.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like,
Wow.
Heather. And it was from like
Ooh.
parents to grandparents to siblings, on my
Mm-hmm.
husband's side, to
Yeah.
cousins, to friends, all these
Yeah.
people. I mean, Jermaine's side of the family is huge. So I felt like
Yes.
at
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
point we were going through a cycle, like we had a funeral every week. I felt like,
Man.
for his friends dying, Stacy passed, Tice
Yeah.
passed, Dunk, like all these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I had several, it was just crazy. And
Right.
she was like, you're gonna be a death doula. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I've heard of a
Uh-huh.
birthing doula. What the heck is that?
Right. Right.
I just pushed it to the side. I was like,
Uh-huh.
Lori's just whatever.
Yeah.
And she was
Yeah.
like, no, when you get home, I want you to
Okay.
write a list of all these people that you've
Okay.
lost and kind of how you felt when they
Mm-hmm.
passed.
Okay.
And I remember I got to like number 27 on the list. And like for all of them, I'm writing the name, and it was easy. I was like, name this, daddy
Uh-huh.
this, granny that. I got to
Yeah.
27 and I was just numb.
Oh.
It was like at that point I knew whatever word I was writing, like I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really thinking about it. Like I
Thinking.
was just doing
Okay.
it to kind of do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I stopped. I had wrote the names, and then I was going back to do the words, and I just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I she called me, and I said, it's so much. It's
Mm-hmm.
so much. And
Yeah.
she was like, you're the only person I know that has lost all these people. She said, you've lost a baby, you lost a parent, you lost a grandparent,
Mm-hmm.
you've lost someone to a suicide, you've lost a
Yeah.
friend. Like she started naming all these scenarios, like cancer, COVID, like all these things.
Uh-huh.
And she said, you've navigated all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
I never had thought of it like that, because when you're in it,
Uh-huh.
of course you
You
don't
don't
see it like
see it.
that.
No.
And she said, you're always just so in the moment. When that happens, you're in control, and
Mm-hmm.
it's easy for you to do it. And I never thought of it that way, because when I'm in it, I'm like, this is hard.
Right. Oh yeah.
But from the outside perspective looking in, she was like, Heather, you just do it with grace.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can speak. Like I have spoke at several funerals about somebody, and she was like, you just do it. And she's like, it's like effortless to you. And I never
Mm-hmm.
thought about it. And she was like, I really think you need to do this death doula thing. So I started doing a little bit of research on it, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell anybody. And I was like,
Okay.
I'm gonna take this class and
Yeah.
see. And then if I'm not gonna do it, I don't have to go back and tell them I'm not doing it, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So like I'm gonna do this undercover. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
the class, and I
Okay.
actually graduated the class on my grandmother's birthday that had passed,
Oh.
which was very ironic. And so part of
Yeah.
my final was to write your own eulogy.
Ooh.
And we were on a Zoom call, and she was like, who wants to go first? Which I didn't know what the question was. And I was like, me. I just want to get it over with. And she was like, okay, you have 3 minutes to do your eulogy. And I was like,
3 minutes.
what? And so this was July 21st, and my birthday is July 16th. So I was like, okay, think quick, Heather. What do people say about you on your birthday? Like I tried to go back to remember like my Facebook post, like he's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
kind, she's smart, like so I'm like, okay,
Yes.
it's Heather, Stuart Lipscomb, daughter of, like
Uh-huh.
I'm like doing it right.
Get it all done.
And
Yeah.
she was like, oh my gosh, you did so good. And I was like, thank you. And when I got done, I was like, what just happened? Like it just kind of came out.
I
And
bet.
So of course I graduated from that, and then
Mm-hmm.
I called my 2 girlfriends that went with me after Ron had
Mm-hmm.
passed, and I was like, "Hey,"
Yeah.
I sent them a picture of their certificate, and they were like, "What is that?"
Uh-huh.
And I was like, "I graduated. I did it." And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did it." And so with that,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a birthing doula, but it's a
Okay.
death doula. So there's kind of different ways you can do it. You can go about it while they're in transition, like you can sit with the family and kind of lead and guide them with their hospice people on what to
Okay.
expect, and you're just kind of like the bystander. Or it can be after, like helping them with the funeral planning, um helping them write the obituary, finding
Mm-hmm.
out all the names of these family members, um
Okay.
helping them afterwards, like, when do you want to clean the house? Do you want
Mm-hmm.
to donate the clothes? Do you not
Uh-huh.
want to? Do you
Right.
want something else? Like all these different things. And so my main thing has been the after. Some of
Okay.
it has been
Okay.
like, we know someone's going to pass, and they've called
Mm-hmm.
me and said, "Hey, can you meet us at the funeral home tomorrow? Will you be with us
Gotcha.
there?" And some of it, I just kind of sit there. I'm just support
Mm-hmm.
to be
Just
there as an
support.
outside source. And some of it, I literally have to kind of take control and help them
Uh-huh.
because they're not able to.
Yeah.
And then the after the grief is, I do some in person where I will go and meet. But most of it is through a Zoom. And
Okay.
I don't have an agenda, Tiffany. I kind of
Okay.
let it
Okay.
go where the people need it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
a scenario, one of my clients, she lost a child. That's how we
Okay.
connected. Her child was 17. And so we connected on that. I don't know what it's like to lose a 17-year-old.
Right.
And so
Right.
I told her that up front, like, I don't know what you're feeling. I know as
Mm-hmm.
a mom what it is to lose a child, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and we're just kind of meet in the middle. But just walk through them through the anger. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to feel like you're alone in it, all these different things. And so I do that through Zoom. And like I said, or I will meet in person. I kind of just, like I said, I just let it be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Several meetings hasn't been about that at all. It's been
Okay.
about
Okay.
their life, how they're truly living. The name of it is To Live Again After,
Okay.
because there is a life before that person, and
Yeah.
there's a life after that person.
That's right.
And it's
That's right.
bigger than sometimes just people.
Uh-huh.
It could be a divorce. It could be a
Yeah.
house. It could be
Mm-hmm.
a dream that's not going to happen now. I mean, part of my thing
Yeah.
is I
Yeah.
would love for my dad to see these grandbabies. So, like, I grieve that. Like, at Christmas, when
Right.
we're all there, I'm like, man, I wish my dad was here with the video camera video and like he did us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
part of that is just, I don't think people realize there's so many different things you can grieve.
Yes, it
Friendships,
is.
you know,
Friendships. Yeah.
expectations of things.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different things. It's not just death.
No, it's not.
And I had to learn that.
Yeah, that's something I've learned too, Heather. I mean, when I think about me and Quinn, I mean, we wanted kids, at least
Yes.
one. I mean, we getting old now, so we had settled on we just gonna have one child.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do grieve. It's a lot of different things you grieve. Your
I,
future.
I say it's those that
It's a
grieve and
lot.
coulda, woulda.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we would have
What you're
done
doing?
this. We could have done this.
Yes, yeah, yeah. What you're doing is true ministry, Heather. I didn't even know that existed. I thank you for even bringing that
Yeah.
death doula, term to me because
Yeah.
I've never heard of that
Yeah.
before, and I did not know you offered that service,
Yeah.
and that is very much needed,
Yeah.
especially when things happen and people have no idea as to which direction to go, what to do. If there are people who like really aren't associated with church, they have no clue of
No.
how any of this is going to
No.
work. So to know it's somebody, with the credentials you have to come in and help them navigate that, that's amazing.
Thank you.
It is. Do you have a Facebook page for that, or
I do,
do
and an
you just
Instagram, and it's just To Live Again After.
okay?
And then I give my cell phone out. I know that's terrible, but
Yeah.
I just feel like, you know what? God is going to protect me, what he needs to protect me
Yeah.
from. And I give people
Yeah.
my phone. Like, there was
Yes.
I gave my phone number to a homeless lady one time, and my best
Uh-huh.
friend was like, Heather, oh, no, like, because
You had good intention.
I
You just
did.
want to be approachable, and you want, it's a word for that. You just want the people to know, like, I'm here and available.
Yes.
And I'll put all of it in our description in this episode. Your IG handle, your Facebook, and your phone number if you want me to. I'll throw it all in there. Because I think that is just amazing work. And I just did not know that existed.
Yeah,
And it's
I didn't
needed.
either. If it wasn't for
Much
my friend,
needed.
I
Yeah.
had no clue either. But it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
needed. So much I've seen, I want to say since COVID, because it
Yeah.
impacted so many people so
Yes.
quickly, and it didn't have an
Yes.
age on it. You know,
No, it did not.
it,
Not at all.
there was nothing with that. So I feel like it kind of took off, like grief and like healing and these journeys
Yeah.
where people were like, this is needed. I need this.
Yeah.
You need this. We need this, you know. And I
Yeah.
think I support anybody that's like on
Yeah.
this, like, and in prayer, and like some people probably don't even know you pray for them, but it's like, Lord, let
Yeah.
me lift them up to you, you know, whatever is in their plan for today, be with them, you know,
Yeah.
because
That's right.
you never know.
You never know. And it's good to know, people are, you're on people's minds, and that they are praying, and that's really, really important, for sure. So Heather, it sounds like to me you found purpose in a lot of the pain that you have went through. So I'm gonna skip to this last little our little outro question. I always ask people, of course, Quinn was all in the music. If you could have one song be your life story, what would that song be and why?
Oh gosh, it's Dolly Parton. I know it's
Okay.
so crazy, but she has a song. It's called "You Better Get to Living," and it's an
Oh,
old song,
okay.
so it's like one of those that I randomly came across.
Okay.
But it's basically just saying like, you better get to living. Like, don't
Wow.
let these things hold you
Yeah.
back. Like each day, you never know.
Yeah.
Like we might
That's
make it to
right.
lunch, we might not.
That's right. That's right. You're
And
right, Heather.
then here recently,
Mm-hmm.
just on the Greek, like that's like my life one, but I have to put this
Your
one in
life
there.
one.
Brandon
Okay.
Lake and Jelly Roll released, Hard Fought Hallelujah.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
heard the song before he did the collab with Jelly Roll, and it just hit
Uh-huh.
me. I remember driving down the interstate, and I couldn't turn my radio up like no
Up
more.
loud
I
enough.
had it so loud, and I was
Uh-huh.
singing, the best I ever sing in the car. You know how that is.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
but that song is so true. Like sometimes it is a hard fought hallelujah.
Yes.
Like
Yeah, it is.
sometimes you don't want to praise God through this storm.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
And
It's right,
but
Heather.
it's
Mm-hmm.
so true. And like in the end, he's gonna get the praise no matter what.
Yeah.
Like you
Oh,
may
yeah.
not think it in it, but he's gonna get it.
That's
So
right.
those two right now I would
Okay.
have to
Those.
say define me
Okay.
pretty well. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I feel like I've heard that one. I need to look up the Dolly
hard
Parton one
one.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I've been. And you said it's an older song,
It
so it may
is.
not be
It's
something
I
I
think,
probably have heard.
man, it was
But I'm gonna have
probably
to check that
before I
out.
was even born. Like it's an old song. But it's like the words, like the music
The
is not that
word.
great, trust me.
Yeah, it's the
But I mean, it's an
lyrics.
older one, but it's the
Yeah,
lyrics. Like even if you
yeah.
just read the
Just
lyrics,
reading them. Yeah,
it's like, man, I
yeah.
better, I better do this. Like, don't let
Uh
these
huh.
days slip away from you. You know?
Right, right. And it's so easy to happen, but we have to be mindful and conscious to not allow them to.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, you're right. You are 100% right about that. Well, Heather, we kind of at the end. Is there anything? What key? I feel like we've talked about so much in this
Yeah.
episode. I feel like we've touched a lot on just awareness of dementia, Alzheimer's. We've reached on that, of course, infant loss. We've hit a lot of different things, and even your death doula, the certification you have. What are some last thoughts you want to leave with our audience today from your episode? Some key
Well,
points,
I want to
takeaways.
thank you first of all for just
Yes,
having
yes,
me.
Heather. Yeah.
When you reached out to me, I was like, yes, absolutely. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have I
Thank you,
watched you
Heather.
from a little bitty girl,
Yeah.
and you're born to do big things. I truly believe that. You have amazing parents, and
Oh, yeah,
I
I do,
know they have
Heather.
been with you through all this,
Yes,
and
ma'am. They have. Yes.
have I have seen it.
100%.
You are a testimony, and I truly think this is just the beginning for you.
I
Um,
receive it, Heather.
and
Thank you so much.
I think Quentin is so proud of you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my girl,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
big. It's
Thank
gonna be
you.
big.
Thank you
I
so
truly feel
much.
that, and you just keep going.
I
Like,
will,
I
Heather.
know
I
days are
will.
hard, but like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
you will
Oh, yeah.
survive 100% of your hardest days because you ain't broke the record yet. You've
Right.
survived every one of them.
That's
So
right. That is so
just
true.
keep that in the back of your mind always. Like, I can do hard things.
Yeah,
Can
I
do it.
will. I will definitely
So,
do that for sure.
so
Oh, I appreciate you, Heather, so
you're
much. You don't know.
welcome.
This has been such a breath of fresh air. I feel like I've learned so much. I feel like we've cried, we've laughed, but this is what this space is about.
Yeah.
It's just about showing our humanity, being genuine and being real because life is real and
Yeah.
life be life, and as people say.
It'd be life and for sure.
Yes. And I think when we can have these spaces where we can really talk, and kind of give hope to people and even ourselves, because we all are going through,
Yeah.
it's just so beneficial. And so I just appreciate you. I do. I do. And
Thank you.
you'll always be family no matter what. We
I
always
know.
family forever.
I
We
know.
stuck
I
together
know.
forever.
Forever and ever. I know. I got to
Yes.
thinking the other day, I'm like, how many years have it really been?
I
And so
know.
it 30,
Yeah. Probably so. Yeah.
37 years. I'm like, man,
Yes.
that's
A
a
long
long
time.
time.
And time flies by. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Time goes so fast.
But
It does. It does.
I
It
love you.
does.
I've always loved you. You're
I love you
my
too,
people.
Heather.
You're still my
Oh yeah.
people. Always.
Forever, forever. Well, all right. Well, we're going to sign off, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. Thank you again, Heather, for being here. And so one way I always like to end the episode, Quinn used to always say all is well. So I'm going to end it with all is well.
Yes. All is well.
All is well. Well, all right. We will see you guys next time. Stay tuned and have a good week.
Yes.
Bye. We hope that today's episode has encouraged you and helped to identify strategies to navigate your grief and begin the process of moving forward in life. Grief Tribe Healing Vibes. What were some key takeaways from today's episode? Drop a comment below and remember to like, follow, and subscribe.